Thank you very much. All right, the first thing is, Hashem, welcome to everybody. Today is Sunday, was the 5th day of Adar, and Monday is the 6th day of Adar, and Tuesday is the 7th day of Adar. The 7th day of Adar is a holiday. It's the day of Moshe. It's both the day that Moshe passed away and both the day that Moses was born. When a person is born and died on the same day, the verse is, one second. One second. I thought I wrote it down, but the pasuk is that I will complete the numbers of your days. What does it mean? It's a pasuk in Psalms. What does it mean? I will complete the numbers of your days. If a person passes away, since the year, the year is a spiral, as we've spoken about many times before, that time is a spiral moving from the beginning of time, from the creation of Adam until Mashiach comes, from below to above, and it's each circle goes higher and higher. So therefore, where can I see myself? Where am I? Oh, you can't see me. Nobody complained. Yeah, look at that. You see, without glasses. My wife says I'm gonna have to put on cream to get rid of the wrinkles under my eyes. No, Hashem Yazor. Anyway, Zion Adar, Chevra, Zion Adar, the 7th day of Adar, the whole miracle of Purim that we celebrate in the 2nd month of Adar. This year is a leap year, like we spoke about last year. The whole miracle of Purim happened because of Adar. Haman, the Amalekite, the evil person, threw a lot to see which month he should destroy the Jewish people. And when he came up with the lot of Adar, he thought for sure that was meant that he's going to be successful. Why? Because Moses passed away on the 7th of Adar. What he didn't know is that Moses also was born on the 7th of Adar. The pasuk says, I will complete your days. For tzaddikim, God completes their days. What does it mean, completing their days? If a person was born on the 15th day of Adar, I was born on the 15th day of Adar. A person was born on a particular day of the month, and he passes away on a different day. Well, there's a par between the day that he passed away and the day that he was born. So his days weren't complete. In other words, the days of the spiral of the year were not complete. When a person passes away, is born and passes away in the same day, that means his days are complete. Each year has the same number of days. So that's a sign of a very great tzaddik. We don't know of very many people that it happened to. One of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's it was true of, the Marash. It's also true of Moshe Rabbeinu. And I'm sure plenty of other people that we don't know about. Okay, and so it's a day. Some people fast, some people celebrate. Everybody merge on who are in the north of Israel. Bli Neder, go to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Why do they go to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Because we say that on a person's death day, all of the tzaddikim gather in his chamber. Okay. And so since we for sure know that Rabbi Shimon is buried in Har Meron, a 10-minute drive from Tzfas, and Rabbi Shimon is together with Moshe Rabbeinu in his chamber, in his heichal, there. So by going to Rabbi Shimon, you can actually connect through Rabbi Shimon to Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so I want to say just one more thing. If anybody has any questions about it, welcome Vincent and Moshe, welcome. If I want to say one more thing, that it's a famous thing that this week's Torah portion, I should test everybody. People who are coming to my class should know the name of the Torah portion. Okay, Levi, what's the name of this week's Torah portion? I can't hear you. 1 second. Why? You're muted. I don't know. I don't know how to.
Well, I think it's Kitzaver.
That's right. No, be careful who said that. Last week was Truma.
Last week was Teruma.
That's Shabbat, but today's Sunday. This week is Tetzaveh.
Oh, yes.
That's right.
I thought you were asking the past parsha. No.
Next week, thank you very much. And next week is Kitisa. So it's very interesting. In the entire Torah, from the time that Moshe is born until he passes away, in the very last portion of Devarim, Moses is mentioned in every single portion of the Torah, with one exception. What's that one exception? He's not mentioned in the Parsha Tetzaveh. And the answer, is that clear to everybody? Lisetta, does that make sense? Lisetta?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I could think actually somebody's sleeping. I can hear them snoring. Okay. The only Torah portion since Moses was born in the Parsha Shmos 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, that Moses' name is not mentioned is in Tetzaveh. So there's two reasons that are given. Right. One reason is because in next week's portion, Kitisa, where we speak about the sin of the golden calf, and God wants to destroy the Jewish people, and Moses puts his own life on the line, and he says, "Erase me from your book." Literally means kill him. Right? Erase me from your book if you're not going to forgive the Jewish people. Okay. And so Hashem, the Almighty, relented, and he didn't destroy the Jewish people. But since we say tzaddik geyser hakadosh baruch hu makayim, when a tzaddik decrees, God fulfills his decree. So he had in some way to erase Moses' name from the book, and that's why the traditional answer is that we don't find Moses' name in the Parsha Tetzaveh. It says the portion begins with Ato Tetzaveh. You have to command the Jewish people. It doesn't mention Moses' name. Now, in a certain sense, I hope that was clear, okay? That God fulfilled Moses' request by not mentioning his name in the book of Tetzaveh. But really, it doesn't answer the thing. What does that mean that Moses said, erase my name from your book, and God takes his name out of the book, the Parshas Tetzaveh? It doesn't make sense, really. Why is that really fulfilling what Moses said? He didn't erase his name from his book. The answer that Chassidim give is that Zion Adar always falls very close to Parsha Tetzaveh. And Moses' presence is so powerful, okay, that his name doesn't need to be mentioned in Parsha Tetzaveh, because his identity, all of the Torah. You know what? This is my. I have a little office in my house, and all the rooms of the walls are filled with Svarim. Thank God. There's always something to learn, and I have more Svarim in the other room. Okay, and I have a tiny library, tiny. Okay, and because everything that we have, Kol HaTorah Kula, all the ideas. Look at what's in the internet. Look what each of us study. There's unlimited amount of Torah. All of that comes from whom? From Moshe Rabbeinu, from Moses. He was the conduit for all of the Torah. So that the reason, not only is the reason why his name is not mentioned in Parsha Tetzaveh, because he's so present, right, on the day of his birth and the day of his passing, he's so present in the world. It's too much light. We're going to talk about too much light in a minute. Okay, but even what happens in next week Parsha, this that he says, erase my name from your book, that he was so connected to the Jewish people that he couldn't accept for a minute that God would hurt them and would stop being our God even for a second. That confidence, that incredible confidence, right? Where did it come from? It came from Parsha Tetzaveh, right? It came from Zion Adar, right? Where it's his, not only is his day of passing, but it's his day of his yahrzeit. His energy is so powerful in the world. He feels so united with the Jewish people that he could say for eternity, I'm connected to the Jewish people on that level, that if you're not going to forgive them, erase my name from your book. Okay, so that's the power of Zion Adar. Everybody should do something. There are customs. If you go to the grave of any tzaddik, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, or if you're in some place where there is graves of righteous people, or you're near the Rebbe's grave, all of those places you can actually connect with the soul of Moshe. Obviously, the other customs of Yortzites, to learn a little bit of Torah in Moses's merit, okay, to light a candle. Who remembers what the idea of lighting a candle is? Okay, what's the idea of lighting a candle? That we said it a few times before. The whole purpose of a person to come into the world is to bring light into the world, right? And when we light a candle on their special day, and with Moses, it's not only his birthday, but the day that he passed away. When we light a candle on this coming Monday night and Tuesday, Dax, which is the Yortzeit, and birthday, this was speaking about it, it's the birthday and passing away of Moses. The whole Torah is called Torah Moshe. The entire Jewish religion is based on the teachings of this one incredible person who spoke to God at will. Okay, he actually could ask God questions. Who can imagine such a thing? Okay, so everybody should, the minimum, and I'm talking to myself also, to light a candle, because when you light a candle, in other words, you're bringing a little bit of light into the world, like his soul was supposed to accomplished of bringing light into the world. And so you're even though a candlelight is nothing like the spiritual light of the soul, but there is some connection, like we spoke about 2 weeks ago, right? That just like the candle wants to do is to break away from the wick and to connect with the infinite. Okay, the same way each person's soul wants to just to fulfill God's will, right? And by doing so, to connect with its creator. So when we light a physical candle on the day of the passing of a great person, right? That gives him incredible pleasure and vindicates his life even more, and it brings his soul closer to our soul. Okay, so those are the things. Okay, and to learn a little bit of Torah, to open up a Chumash, Torah Moshe, and to read a verse, hopefully from Parshas Tetzaveh, right, in Moses's merit. Okay, now we're going to go look inside. We are. Who has questions? Thank God for Dara.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait, so when it's a leap year, how does that impact the observance of well, I know how it works with other people's Yortzites, but how does it work with Moshe?
Okay, if I just looked it up because I had that question also. Welcome, Vincent. And the answer is Moshe himself was actually born in the first Adar and passed away in the second Adar. So both Adars are, everything is shaykh to him, okay, coming and going. In general, Yortzites are celebrated, are acknowledged, are in the first Adar. With the custom with Yortzites in the Chassidic community, I'm not sure how it is in other communities, is that the real Yortzeit, where you do all the things where the soul goes to a higher level, that's in the first Adar, and in the second Adar you also say Kaddish. You also say Kaddish, and there's also a connection to the soul, but not like the first Adar. With Moshe, since he has a connection to both Adars, nevertheless, his Yortzeit, I'm sorry, he passed away in the first Adar, and he was born in the second Adar. That was the thing, okay? And so therefore, so we celebrate the Yortzeit in the most powerful way in the Adar Rishon, the first Adar, right? And then we also acknowledge it, as we'll speak about in a month from now, in the second Adar. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know there's a lot of different customs.
Baruch Hashem, but this is now to Monday night is the Hilulah of the Yortzeit of Moshe. Okay, so let's look inside. We have English. Look at that. Okay, we have beautiful English. Yeah, it's beautiful. Mrs. Dominitz worked hard on it. You have to give her praise. She takes the dirty napkin that I give her, and she turns it into a beautiful a creation. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so we're going to be studying this week We're going to be studying about machshavas, about negative thoughts. Negative thoughts or inappropriate thoughts. And I was thinking about, what do you say about inappropriate thoughts? Let's just start with first of all, the two stories that I could find about the Ba'al Shem Tov about negative thoughts. First story was that he was in a particular shul, but I actually wrote it down. A second. No, I didn't write it down. The name of the shul was I didn't write it down either. Okay, but it's a short story. That there was one of the students, there was a person that was his Talmud. And this was before the Ba'al Shem Tov had revealed himself. And he and he had a son-in-law. His son-in-law is a brother-in-law. And the brother-in-law, we spoke about it many months ago. The brother-in-law thought that Yisrael, his name was Yisrael ben Eliezer, was a simple person. And he didn't understand why his sister wanted to marry him. And he tried to block the marriage. And there was this drama going on, right? And it wasn't until later that the Ba'al Shem Tov revealed himself to his brother-in-law, Reb Gershon, who was a very big Torah scholar, a big tzaddik, like he did to his wife and to the others. And until then, the Ba'al Shem Tov actually was derisive of him and blocked him in some of his things. So once this rabbi, a great rabbi, there weren't not so many people owned holy books. With this great rabbi, the Ba'al Shem Tov said to bring him a Zohar, and so he was bringing him a Zohar. And Gershon Kitover actually saw this rabbi and said, "Where are you going?" And I'm going to your brother-in-law Yisrael. And what do you got there? And he didn't want to tell him. And he said, "Please, you must tell me." And he showed him that it was a Zohar. That's what Yisrael wants, is a Zohar. That simpleton. And he said, "No, you can't bring it to him." And sometime later, a short time later, the Ba'al Shem Tov went to the synagogue of that rabbi, and he wouldn't come inside. Right? He wouldn't come inside. He davened in the field, and when he got there, they were finishing up a davening. He got there for kedusha, right? It's a communal part of the davening there, and he said, well, he's standing outside. He sent one of the people from the synagogue inside to take down on his instructions a picture. Many shuls today also, and at that time for sure, had a picture of a menorah with 7 arms, okay, 3 on 3 and 1 in the center, which was also in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. There were 7 arms to the menorah. And this pasuk, the 67th Psalm, has 7 verses. And the tradition is to take each of the verses and to put it in the shape of the menorah, each one, and it's a very big segula for the prayers being to meditate on it. I suggest everybody look at the 67th Psalm to meditate on the verses and to think about it in the image of a menorah. You can actually do a Google for it. Just to do a Google for the 67th Psalm menorah. Just do that, and pictures will come up. You see what it looks like. And so the Ba'al Shem Tov told one of the congregants, to go and take the picture down. All right, and after davening, the rabbi, the shul, who was the person that wanted to bring him the Zohar, said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "It's true that every time you pray, you have a machshava Zohar, an inappropriate thought." Now, he was a very big tzaddik, that person. So his inappropriate thought could have just been, we're going to discuss what that means in a minute. It could have been something completely inappropriate, like thinking about sexuality or something inappropriate. Or it could just be thinking about something extraneous, something that's not appropriate to the context of what the person was doing. One way or the other, he told the rabbi, "It's true that you have inappropriate thoughts?" And he said, "Yes." This is because the picture of the menorah was written by a person who, when he wrote it, he had inappropriate thoughts. And so when you meditate on it, you had inappropriate thoughts. So that's one story about the Ba'al Shem Tov. Another story about the Ba'al Shem Tov, right, is that he said that there was another shul where because the mezuzah on the front door was invalid. In other words, sometimes there could be a mistake in the writing of the mezuzah. Each letter has to be written in a certain way. If the letter is touched, for instance, or a letter is missing, or a word is missing, God forbid, then the mezuzah becomes invalid. And so the Ba'al Shem Tov said he revealed that the reason why people were having negative thoughts when they were davening was because the mezuzah and the entrance to the synagogue was invalid. Okay, so there are two stories about the Ba'al Shem Tov, but they don't. What are they? But it doesn't really speak about the idea of. Okay, Arella came. Welcome, Arella. Okay, did I not welcome everybody? Arella and Dax, Vincent and Regina, welcome, and Daniel. It's so nice to see you, and Moshe, Lisetta, Dara, and Ionut. I love that name, and Valerio and Levi. Baruch Hashem, thank you all of you for coming. Okay, so I wanted to I tried to find some other stories about inappropriate thoughts that will make the point better. Okay, so 1 second. So there was a very famous, what time is it? Can't get carried away. All right, there was a very famous spiritual advisor. His name was Rav Gronim, and Rav Gronim was a chassid of the Rebbe Maharash, and the Rebbe Maharash and Rav Gronim were once not in Lubavitch, not in the town of the Chabad, the Chassidic town, another town, and a Polish Rebbe came to them, and the Polish Rebbe said to them, "I don't understand why you Chabad people daven so slowly. Okay, doesn't it make more sense to daven quickly like all of the Polish Hasidim? And why do we daven quickly? Because if a not Jewish person is throwing rocks at your wagon, okay, then what do you have to do? You have to drive fast to get away from the rocks." Okay, and what does that mean technically? Then when a person's concentrating on the words of the prayer and he's saying them very, very quickly, then there's no time for negative thoughts to come into his head. Okay, so what did the Rebbe Maharash answer him? Rebbe Maharash says, that's a good svara, a good opinion. If the person throwing the rocks is outside on the road, but what happens if the person throwing the rocks is sitting there in the wagon with you and he's throwing rocks at you when he's in the wagon? Doesn't do any good to drive the wagon fast, right? You have to push him out of the wagon and then you can take your time and daven. That's the idea of people concentrating and meditating. When you meditate, a person meditates before they pray, and they focus themselves. Starts out with positive breathing, taking a Jewish idea and dissecting it in your mind. It could be repeating a phrase that pushes the negative influences out of our head and gives us the ability to think positive thoughts when we're davening. Okay, and even if a negative thought comes, when a person's focused, they can push it away right away. So that's one story. Okay, there's a second story. Says that there was a famous Rav. His name is Yitzhak Yosef Rabilovitz, and he was a chassid also of the Rebbe Maharash. And one time when the Rebbe Maharash blew the shofar, again, there are three different calls of the shofar. There's the long blast, right? The kia, and then there's trua, is the short blast, ba, 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 ba. And then there's shvarim, which is the middle-sized blast. Okay, so once when the Rebbe Maharash was blowing, one of his short blasts sounded like a longer blast. Okay, and to this Rav, who the custom is when you're listening to the shofar, you follow this. It's laid out. Each of the blasts is written out in the machzor, in the High Holy Prayer book, and so he was following each one. And in his mind, there was an extra long blast and not enough short blasts. Okay, and so when he thought about it, why did the Rebbe do that? Okay, and so when he actually went into the Rebbe for yechidus, for a private audience before he left, the Rebbe said to him, for spiritual reasons, I made one of my short blasts longer. But what do you think? What do you think that a negative thought is something inappropriate that a person thinks in the middle of a mitzvah? No, it's even thinking something that's connected to the mitzvah, but shouldn't be thought at that time. Like he's having doubts about the Rebbe. He should be listening to the call of the shofar with complete spiritual focus. He shouldn't be thinking anything at all. He shouldn't be thinking one more, one less. He should be totally focused on the thing. Even thinking that thought about how come it seemed like there was, instead of a 60 blast, there was only 59 of this and 40 of this, right? That's a maksava zara. Okay, so that's the second idea, right? The way to get rid of negative thoughts is the first is by focusing. Okay, is when we're doing, especially when we're davening, to push as much as we can, to take precautions, to think, to meditate, and to put our head screwed on straight, right, so that we can control the thoughts that are coming to our head. And even if a negative thought comes, we can push it out right away. The second thing is that negative thoughts are not just thinking about stealing something, or something about intimacy, or something like that. You know, a negative thought could even be something that's not appropriate. The right thought, but at the wrong time. That's also a negative thought. Okay, and so that's the teaching of the second story. And the third story is, so Peretz Chaim. Peretz Chaim was a famous Chassid. He was an incredibly clever person, and there's a whole book written about his different sayings that he said. And this is a story that he said just before he passed away. He called his son into the room, and he told his son to take off his shoes. Wow. Take off his shoes. I mean, when Moses went to the burning bush, God told him to take off his shoes, because Admas Kodeshu, the land is holy. So if Peretz Chaim told his son that when he comes into the room where his father's about to pass away, told him to take off his shoes, it means he really knew that he was a tzaddik, a righteous person. So now, if he knew he's a righteous person, so then what he's going to say now is very important. So the son comes into the room, and he says that many years ago, my mother came to me in a vision, okay, from the heavens. And she told me three things. She said, okay, now listen. Number one, she said that when you learn Torah, the repeating of the Torah, in other words, the repetition, when you learn something a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth or 100th time, when you repeat it, and you're repeating it for a few reasons. One is because something that you know, when you have diamonds, you just love to count them, okay, over and over and over again, okay. If you love something very much, you want to connect to it. That's one level. The second level of repeating the Torah is that you want it to become part of you. So you repeat it over and over again until you completely connect with the words of the Torah. Okay, and the third is that it says that I should have said first. The first is it says that at least the person, every time he studies Torah, so at least 4 times for the 4 letters of God's name. It says in the times of the Talmud, they would learn things 100 times, and the person who was considered to be on a high level would learn it 101 times. Okay, so repetition is part of Torah. But the second thing is we repeat things because we love it, and the third thing is we repeat things because we want to become part of us. So his mother said to him, she said to him, what does the word say exactly? That when you repeat the Torah that you learn, right, is more dear in heaven than when you actually learned it for the first time. Think about that. Right? If you're going to read something once, a Jewish idea, okay, right, and you're going to connect to it, even if you think you know it completely, when you learn it the second or the third or the fourth time, it's much more dear in heaven. Heaven appreciates it incredibly more than the first time when you studied. Even though the first time you studied, you had to break your teeth to get it. There's an idea there. You want to understand it. And you're sitting there and you're cracking your skull. You're asking people. You're looking up all the words. You're repeating it over and over again. You don't get it. And when you finally get it, that's the powerful part for us. The secret she revealed to him was the powerful part of the Torah is when you repeat it afterwards. Okay, that's the second thing. That's the first thing she said. The second thing she said, okay, and this is about, he said that there's a concept called pigul. Pigul is when a priest, a Kohen, would bring an offering in the temple, and even though he would do every single aspect and every sacrifice had so many details of how the animal was prepared and how the animal was slaughtered, and then how the blood had to be dripped on the different corners of the altar or on the curtain of the Holy of Holies, or how it had to be, the meat had to be afterwards cut, what had to be burned on the altar, whatnot. If a person didn't even one of those actions, he did with the wrong intention. In other words, everything was externally perfect, but he thought the wrong intention. Okay, his mind wandered for a minute, or he thought about, the great breakfast that his wife made for him that day, or that his kid got great marks in school, or something ridiculously, something else. Even if everything was perfect, if even only one thought was inappropriate, that's called pigul, and the whole thing had to be thrown away and done again. Okay, so the second thing that the Peretz Chaim's mother told him is that since we say that tefillos keneged karponos tiknum, that all of the prayers that we say are in relation to the offerings in the temple, like there was a morning offering and an afternoon offering, and in the evening the leftover parts of the animals were burned on the altar. So also, if a person has an inappropriate thought, the prayers are considered invalid. That's what she told him. And am I suggesting to anybody that if God forbid, if a person has a negative thought or an inappropriate thought or an untimely thought when they're davening, that davening is not worth anything? No, not at all. Read my lips, not at all. On the other hand, a person has to focus. I'm talking to myself also. Has to focus, and if his mind begins to wander, to try to push it away, so that we shouldn't even come close to our prayers being considered pigul, like a priest, like a Kohen, with inappropriate thought. And the third thing that Peretz Chaim's mother told him when she came to him in a vision many years before, what does it say exactly? He revealed to him all of the things that would happen to him during the course of his entire life. And when he said that last word, he said the Shema, and he passed away. Okay, those are the three stories about thoughts. Now let's look inside. So I hope we created a little understanding of the Jewish tradition about thoughts. Okay, I was going to say one more thing. Whoever does Tanya Chitas, I hope I didn't lose everybody. Are you sleeping, everybody? Is somebody still there?
I'm awake. So. I'm awake, Rabbi Leiter.
Awake. All's good.
All right, Beseda. Okay, so these chapters in Tanya.
Sleeping so well.
Oh, I woke you up. I'm sorry. Oh, listen, these chapters in Tanya, even if you didn't follow when I begged you 2 months ago on Yutes Kislev that everybody should start doing chitat, should start doing the daily Tanya portion, even if you didn't take my advice. I'm telling you now, I'm begging you, open up the Tanya, get lessons in Tanya. There's an English Tanya. If you don't have, 1 second, it's Chaim Miller's English Tanya. It's in English, regular New York English, okay? That even people from Italy can understand it, right? Okay, or from Toronto or Montreal, or English, right? You can read it in English, right? But the chapters 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, unbelievable. Such basic consciousness, okay, about how a person is supposed to serve Hashem. The whole power of being happy, the power of focus as opposed to lack of focus. It starts off, chapter 26, I'm sure some of you know, I'm just going to say it quickly. It's getting late. It starts off by saying that when two people are fighting, even if one is stronger than the other, but if the stronger person is lazy or it's not focused on the fight, the weaker person will overcome him. Okay, so that's the case with each and every person's divine soul and animal soul. Even though the divine soul is so much stronger than the animal soul, but if the divine soul is being lazy, if it's not focused, then the animal soul, the evil inclination, will overcome it and drag a person down. So it's about Torah is about agility. Okay, the worst thing about the cataract operation is, like, for my doctor said, I can't run for 2 weeks. Right? I feel okay. There's running in Torah also. When a person is Pashut, puts all of his strength into it, he's living it. Even for 5 minutes a day, he takes something and he pushes with all of his strength. When he's there with all 10 of his senses, okay, and all 613 organs of his body, okay, that's the person who's going to overcome the all of the obstacles. Okay, so that's how it begins. Okay, and it says in general, when a person has negative thoughts, then what are you supposed to do? He says, and the verse we say it in the Shema every day. Lo taturu acharei levavachem acharei einechem asher tavzonim achareim. He says you shouldn't lo taturu. Don't space out. Lo taturu, like tatur is like a person, like a tourist touring aimlessly. Lo taturu, don't be aimless after your heart. Don't let your heart draw you away. And after your eyes, things that you see that distract you. Don't be distracted, not by your heart and not by your eyes. That a zona is a prostitute. That a person is selling themselves spiritually short. Okay, and so the Alter Rebbe says, who is it speaking about? Not speaking about tzaddikim. That what we're going to learn now from the Ba'al Shem Tov is when a tzaddik has a negative thought, okay, then he knows what to do with it, because the thoughts are not from him. The thoughts are to transform the world. But when a normal person, when he has negative thoughts, for the most part, it's because the picture was written by a person who didn't have pure thoughts. It was because the mezuzah is not kosher, or it's because he saw things that are taking him away from his focus on Judaism. So what are you supposed to do? Push it away. 99% of the time, push it away. Don't try to transform the thoughts. Now, with that as the background, let's see what the Ba'al Shem Tov said. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. Where's mine? Okay, so it says, Mei Ba'al Shem Tov, Machshavas Zaris. What happens is there's a few incredible teachings here that after that introduction that took 40 minutes, we have so much material. Nobody's leaving till we finish. I'm just kidding. Okay, listen. It says, Machshavas Zaris. Inappropriate. Zar means strange. Zar means strange thoughts. So it can, from the whole gamut, either inappropriate thoughts, the right thought at the wrong time, or it could be inappropriate thoughts about, God forbid, doing a sin, right? Or even thoughts about mundane things in the middle of something holy. That's the range of what's called a machshava zara. And again, I'm going to say something so obvious, but I want to say, right? I just want to say, what's this? Who cares about a negative thought? It says, Ma'aseh b'poel, asher bara Elokim lasos, God made the world to do. So if a person has a negative thought, what does that mean? But the thing is that God, right, as far as God's concerned, a thought is an action. Okay, and so So it's one thing, if a person has a negative thought, we just said it, if a person has a negative thought when they're in the middle of working, they push it away. It's just coming to take them away from doing what they're supposed to be doing. They should be happy even that they have a negative thought because they have this mitzvah to push it away. Okay. But what happens when a person is davening, or he's learning Torah, or he's involved in some other mitzvah, right? What happens when the thought comes then? Okay. So how are you supposed to see that? So that's what he's talking about here. He says, a negative thought, an inappropriate thought that comes to a person in the middle of their davening. Where is it from? Okay, so what's this idea of Shviras HaKelim? The way that we understand, the question is, the big question in Judaism is, okay, and I know each of you, some better, some worse, but we live in a world filled with dichotomies. Where does this, every week we sit here, we talk about God being in the world, God revealing himself, everything is divine providence. Where does this evil come from? Where does the evil have the chutzpah to reveal itself in the world? It's disgusting sometimes. Just get lost, you evil. What do we need you for? Okay, and the answer to this is the thing. Why is the evil there? To give us free choice. And there's a whole system how it started. That God first exuded in there were vessels, right? Like a cup holds granola or coffee. Okay, God made vessels in light, right? And each vessel was one of the 10 sefirot, and it was filled with light. Okay, so there's two different levels of creation. One is called igulim and called yesha. Igulim means circles, and so each of the vessels, it wasn't in a descending order. Each one existed independently. They got filled with light and bow, exploded. Okay, that is the world called, that's called the shvira, the exploding of the vessels. Okay, and those broken shards of the light and the vessels create this world that we live in. The breaking of the vessels, that's called the world of tohu, of chaos. And this world is called the world of tikkun, right? And just like each person is given challenges, each person is supposed to start with tohu, with chaos, and to make order out of it. That's how God created the world. Okay, one of the analogies that's given is of a teacher that speaks on too high a level for the child. Okay, and so the child, all of the light just overflows in the vessel of the child's mind. Another example is given is if you have a book, like a book. Here's a book, hundreds of pages. Okay, and each line of the book has an idea, and each word has a certain meaning. What happens if I took each of those lines and each of those letters and I cut them up, and I take those and I took all those thousands of thousands and I just scattered them everywhere? Okay, well, every part of the book is still there, but it's confused. Okay, and the work of each of us, each and every single person, is to take that's what evil is that the lack of clarity, the fact that things seem confused. We have to putting the puzzle back together. Okay, that's what's called birur nitzutzos, the separating or the identifying or the selecting of the sparks, right? And elevating them back to holiness. Okay, so that's what he says here. That he says that when a person has a negative, an inappropriate, or an untimely thought, when he's in the middle of doing a very serious mitzvah of connecting to God, right? What is that thought? This is from the secret of the breaking of the vessels, right? Of igulim, of each sphere being separate and the vessels being shattered, and then the recreating the world coming back into the way of tikkun, of repair. That our whole job is to put order into the chaos. So he says, look in the English or Hebrew, misod hashvira. This is the secret of the breaking of the vessels. How many sparks there were, from the initial breaking, there were 1 second. Right, there were 490 sparks. The 490 comes from a combination of different names of God. I tell you the truth, I spent a lot of time trying to be able to give you a very good definition, and I don't have one. So we're going to leave it for next time. I'm on the search, okay? But there were originally 490 sparks, 202 from the word Erev Rav, from the were elevated in Egypt when the Jewish people went out of Egypt. There are 288 sparks left over. That's what he says. Again, when a person has a negative thought, right? This is from the secret of the breaking of the vessels, and the 288 sparks. That a person has to select, right? That each person. I saw something that scared the life out of me. To be honest, it said that in each person's lifetime, they have certain sparks that they have to elevate. And every day of their life, he's going to say it in a minute, certain sparks come to them. That it's their portion in the world to, the three things we said, right, is to select them, to repair them, and to elevate them. That's the words he says. It says it inside. You can print the English, right? He says that, again, the 288 sparks that a person has to select each and every day. And what do you do with them? You have to repair them. And then you have to elevate them. Think about our experiences. Think about somebody, somebody that needed your assistance, right? And God sent them to you because you saw the problem, and that means that you have the answer. You didn't just have to see the issue. You have to be able to repair that damage and to elevate them, to take that person and to put them on the right course. Or it could be something more personal in our own lives, some challenge that we have. It could be something to do with a child or with a friend or with a spouse. It could be even an apple or a steak or an ice cream cone, or whatever, how we eat it, right? That God sent us this thing to eat it, to realize. Selecting it means realizing that that's the spark that we have to transform, and to repair it, meaning to take it out of exile, that I think I'm going to use the energy from this ice cream cone in a positive way, and then to take the energy and to do something positive with. That's those three levels of selecting and repairing and elevating. Okay, so and then he goes farther. So he says, so again, this concept exists in everybody's life. All of us have that thing that God presents us each and every day with different challenges, that's the spark of that day. And if a person is only given a certain amount of days to live in this world, and if they didn't elevate the spark of that day, then they're going to get to heaven lacking one of their garments. They're not going to be complete. And then the person has to, that's what tshuva is to push and to sometimes to make up for what we missed in the past. We have to sometimes, just like, if you have a conflict with a person, and instead of dealing with them in a calm and present way, you push them off, you yell at them, not you, me, or treat them in an inappropriate way. Well, then to make amends and to help them later takes much more work. You have to say, oh, I'm sorry how I behaved before. Tell me again what your problem is. Maybe I can help you. And the person doesn't trust you right away, and you have to work harder at it. That whole concept that a person, right, that's the idea of tshuva, that if a person missed the selecting, the repairing, and the elevating of the spark of a particular day, he has to, the next day or the day after, or sometime in the future, he's going to have to work much harder to catch up. Okay, but a person shouldn't be missing remember we talked about the idea of being complete in all of our days. We shouldn't be missing any of the sparks. And that's what he says. So he says that the person has to select them, the atakin, and he has to prepare them and lahalosam, and to send them back to their source in heaven. Okay, the ein machshava zara shel yom zeh doime lemachshava zara leyom acher. And there's the negative thought or the challenge that we have on one day is not the same as the one that we have the next day, and it's only a unfocused person that thinks that everything is the same. But he says, "V'hu bochon," it's actually something that's apparent. L'misha nosen levelzer, right? That each day God is sending us new challenges, okay, and that we can't to lose focus, God forbid, for a minute. Okay, so he's continuing. Go perish Ba'al Shem Tov. Ba'al Shem Tov said more. What do we do? How do we fix them? How do we fix them? Okay, and he says that im hu here. Okay, so if he's okay, we're going to learn what he said. He said im hu here noshim. If it's these persons thinking about women, okay, or refers to any types of thoughts about intimacy where intimacy is not appropriate when a person's involved in davening or in doing a mitzvah, because intimacy is something that absorbs the whole person. Even appropriate intimacy absorbs the whole person. And when a person is supposed to be involved with a mitzvah or davening, he's supposed to be completely absorbed with Hashem. Okay, from that sense, intimacy is like eating; it's a need of the body. Okay, but and it's not appropriate. It's an untimely or inappropriate thought when a person is praying. So what is a person supposed to think? He says such an interesting thing here. He says yekavein lahaloisen b'shorshan. He has to try. He has to intend to send it back to its source. Sehu chesed. Okay, in other words, what's chesed? If a person has thoughts of lovemaking, right? Lovemaking, right? In the middle of when he's supposed to be connected to God. Okay, so then where is that coming from? It's come from the level of loving God, but it got mixed up. Okay, so we have to take it, and Ba'al Shem Tov is saying we have to recognize that inappropriate thoughts about love has a divine source, right? And it's just something that's bent in me, that's inappropriate in me, and that gives the person the beginning to think about how to repair that damage. And he says there's even a pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk says it's a little bit. We're learning what it says. Okay, it says besod. It's a verse in the book of Vayikra. The parsha is called Kedoshim. You can look it up. It's the 20th. I think maybe this is Dominic's brought the source there. It's the 20th chapter, the 17th verse. And what does it say? It says if a person has thoughts about intimacy in the middle of prayer, doing a mitzvah, he says this is the sod. This is the secret of what it says in the verse in the Torah that forbids incest. It says ish asher yikach es achaysei, a person a man that takes his wife, that takes his sister, yikach from the taking in the sense of intimacy. The verse says chesed hu. Hello, chesed means it's the sphere of chesed. It means it's kindness and loving. What is the Torah saying? Rashi says that the word chesed, Rashi, the main commentary, says the word chesed is going on, actually, the Torah sometimes uses words from different language. Chesed in Aramaic means an avla, a abject sin, something, what's the word? Something abhorrent, okay? Something abhorrent. Okay, so how do we understand that? How can the Torah be speaking about incest, and even if the word it really means abhorrent, it's using a word that means kindness and loving? What's it doing there? Okay, so one of the commentaries, the Mamlo Eis, the Torah anthology, so he says that there was once when a brother and sister were intimate. And who's that? Cain, Adam and Eve. Okay, Adam and Eve were one person. It cut into two. Male and female were created together, and then God separated them. And they had two children, and they had two sons and three daughters. So Cain killed Hevel. Okay, and one of the opinions is that they were fighting over who would get the extra sister, whose wife she would be. Okay, but that's a different discussion. We're not gonna do that now. Okay, so who did Cain actually marry? Who did the entire world come from? It came from, he was together with his sister. Okay, so the way that some of the commentaries read it, it says if a man is intimate with his sister, Chesed, what's the Torah saying? God did a kindness once. He did a kindness when the world was created, because there was a purpose. He wanted to create a world of peace. He wanted you to know that if you help one person, it's like helping the entire world, because Adam and Eve were one person, right? So everything came from one person. That if you help, you Valerio, or you Levi, or you Dara, or Ianut, or Moshe, or Daniel, or Regina, or Vincent, if you help one person, then you're saving an entire world. Okay, that's one teaching. And the other teaching is that nobody can say that my father is greater than your father, because we all have one father. Adam and Eve are all of our fathers. So God did it. God had everybody come from one person to make peace in the world. So that's what it says, that a man who is intimate with his sister, it's a kindness. When was it a kindness? Then, back then, 5,000 Tufshin, 782 years ago. But now it's a sin. That's the way that some of the commentaries explain it. Right, this is taking way too long. The way that the Kabbalists explain it is that if a person has a desire to do incest, right, where's it coming from? Nachon, it's love, but it's the wrong kind of love. But where's that love coming from? From the sphera of chesed, of the supernal sphirot. Chesed, it's coming from chesed. Okay, it's not the right way to behave, but you have to understand, right, that it's coming from a very high place, and it's expressing itself in a broken way. Okay, right? That's what it means, and that's what he brings here. So when a person is thinking about inappropriate thoughts about intimacy in the middle of davening, then he should think that this is really, I want to love God. But because I'm not whole, because I'm not complete yet, because I still have to work on myself, it's expressing itself in thinking about intimacy, about another person, okay? That really is coming from chesed. I hope that was clear, okay? That's what it says. Besod ish asher yikach es achaisai, the secret of a man is taking or being intimate with his sister, chesed hu, that it's coming from the attribute of chesed, but the way it's expressing itself in my thoughts, even though it's from the highest spiritual source, it's expressing it in me in a negative way. And if I realize that and I push it away and I redouble my efforts to love God in the purest way, that's how I can, like we said, select and repair and elevate that spark. And he goes further. And I really want to push ahead. You're all sleeping. Welcome, Gabrielle. Okay. So that's the idea of thinking about intimacy when I'm davening. What about if a person has a machshava avodah zara? What if happens if a person thinks about something that's the antithesis of spirituality, right? He thinks about idol worship, or he thinks about something that denies godliness. So he thinks about a situation that it's me. and not God, not God, not God. Okay, or a person thinks, right, that something can't possibly have divinity in it, or a person's behavior is so ridiculous, he's got to be anti-God. Okay, if a person, those kind of thoughts, okay, that's called avodah zarah, idol worship. Okay, when he denies God's existence. So he said that's a pagam, that's a damage in Tiferes Yisrael. Okay, the Tiferes Yisrael. What's Tiferes Yisrael? Again, you have Chochma, Bina, and Das, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Okay, you come to an idea. You come to connect to an idea, and then you have on the right Chesed and on the left Gevurah. Then how much I love the idea, right? Or how much I hate that concept, or I hate the opposite of what I love. Okay, then when I pull it all together, so I can focus it, that's called Tiferes, compassion, or empathy, okay, or mercy. Okay, so when a person and it says what makes Tiferes Yisrael is that God has such pride and pleasure in the Jewish people because they're focused on God. And so when a person thinks of thoughts that are against God, it's pagam, it does damage in the level, spiritual level of Tiferes Yisrael. Okay, and so he has to realize, right, that what does God want from him? To be focused on positive things, to focus on his relationship to Hashem, not on things that are against focusing on Hashem. All right, that's that. That was not easy. It's 10:07. Any questions? Thank you very much for sitting with me. No. What? Okay.
Yeah, so what if you, like, when you're davening and it's like,
Let's thank you so much. Now let's talk about straight. What do we do? Let's hear. Yeah.
no, and okay, let's say you have ADD. Okay, milachatchila. All right, no, it's you know, in a serious way, and you know, you try your best, and it's like you feel like you're fighting a losing battle, and you'd even dive into Hashem about it, and you ask Hashem, you know, please help me focus, and you don't seem to be making any headway in being able to focus when you're davening. So I mean,
Well,
so
first of all, it does speak about it at length in 26 and 27. And what does it say there? Dara, I don't know if you're doing Tanya Chitas, okay? But what does it say? It says there's something so straightforward. It says, right, again, I know that I'm not a tzaddik. A tzaddik doesn't have negative thoughts, and if he has negative thoughts, it's because he has to repair other people's negative thoughts, or the negative thoughts of the world, or the 288 sparks that we need to elevate before Mashiach can come. Okay, but if I have negative thoughts, that's what I was brought into the world for, to push them away. That's my, you know, that's what my purpose is. So the first thing to think, if the negative thought comes, ADHD, whatever you're going to call it, it's not to get sad about it. It's to realize that that's the purpose I was brought into the world. If I can even, you know what? It was a story that I didn't tell you. It was a story, it says, from the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, right? And there was a person in a particular community that stopped behaving completely like an Orthodox Jew. Okay, he was having second thoughts. Okay, and so one of the people in the community came into the Rebbe to ask him about, and they asked about this. The Rebbe asked about this person, and the person said, "Better not to speak about it. We've pushed him out from all of the community organizations. We asked him not to come to the shul. We don't interact with him at all. Okay, because he's off the track." Okay, and the Rebbe said, "You're making a mistake. right? You have to bring him back in, right? And even if all of your efforts only helps him to have one less negative thought, you've accomplished a great thing. Let's apply that in our lives, Dara. Okay, even if you succeed in pushing away just some of the thoughts, right? And you can be focused on some of the time. How happy that's making Hashem. Okay, the point is the most important thing is to recognize. Sometimes, like I said, it helps with meditating before. Sometimes it helps me. For instance, I don't try to daven the entire davening at one time. I get up, I say all the preliminary parts first, and then I meditate. Sometimes I even run early in the morning before my cataracts. Okay, and then I daven from Hodu until Shemona Esrei. Okay, where I can focus better. Okay. The main place where a person has to focus is in the Shemona Esrei. Even if a person has a lot of trouble with the prayers up to then, the main place to focus is Shemona Esrei. Okay, and there the advice is to read the words from the Siddur and to read it slowly and to say the davening as though you're speaking to Hashem. Okay, and to do the best you can. And the more that a person tries, okay, the more that a person will succeed. Okay, I hope I help you in some way.
What if you don't see that? The more you try, the more that you succeed. I mean, for one second, and then a second later, I'm like, oh, my brain went on whatever, traveled to wherever he went.
Okay, when one of the, okay, I hear you, and I'm speaking I'm speaking to myself, not to everybody now. Okay, what happened? Take if that's the case. Okay, first of all, I don't know how much you daven. You know, there's a lot of words in the davening. Okay, it's important to know if you want to daven less. If you feel that davening all the words, all the psalms, all the prayers is difficult, it's important to know what's good to cut out, what's good to not say, what's crucial to say, and what's not so crucial to say. Okay, and that I don't want to speak about on the tape, but anybody that has that question, that would like to know, that they feel that it's very difficult for them to say all of the prayers, or all of the prayers that they say with full concentration, and they want to know, to discuss what's important to what's most important to say and what's less important to say. I'm happy to have that conversation with everybody, privately. But let's take it from a different perspective. I'm going to tell you what I do, right? Okay, that once a week, I take time to pray more with focus. In other words, there's a particular one day a week where I'm going to take a full hour to pray and not rush at all. Okay, and the other days I pick one part of the prayer. It could be one blessing in the silent prayer. It could be the Shema. It could be morning blessings, or I'm saying this I'm going to say with complete focus. That's my challenge for the day. Just this part where I'm not going to let one word go out of my mouth without, like I'm speaking to God with each word. Okay. And if the part that you choose, if that's the part that you do, and you do that completely, you fulfilled your goal for the day. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's okay. I'm sharing with you my personal experience. Okay. Okay. Again, but we said it, that a person has negative thoughts or inappropriate thoughts or untimely thoughts. Man, it's God is showing us that we have a purpose. Our purpose is to banish them. And when I banish them, I'm doing a mitzvah. Every time I push away a negative thought, I'm fulfilling a negative commandment. Don't be distracted by your heart or by your by your heart and by your eyes. You're fulfilling negative commandments. The angels in heaven are rejoicing when I have that negative thought, and they get lost. let me focus on my davening. Okay.
That was very helpful.
Okay, Beseda.
At least.
All right. You know what? We didn't. I'm a little bit. The next section is. Well, hey, look, it's 10:15 already. I'm going to stop. But I wanted. Okay. The next piece is so easy and so beautiful that it's almost a shame not to do it, because it's what we learned today. Kufiyud Beis is complicated, but I want to point out a couple of things that really touched me about what it said here. One thing is, it said, is this idea of the 288 sparks, and that each day God is sending us a particular challenge, and that's the spark for the day. Or there might be more than one spark for the day, right? And the point is to be alert for that, to be alert, and not face, not to let it through our fingers. That's such a beautiful teaching that the Ba'al Shem Tov said. Okay, that one day is not like the next, and what God is sending us today, He's not going to send us tomorrow. And so to be careful, okay, because to retrieve a spark that we lost, I'm talking to myself, to retrieve a spark that we lost is so much more difficult. Okay, that was one incredible lesson here. The other idea that I thought was very important was this idea of the whole idea of Shiras HaKelim, right? Okay, that don't be nespoil. A person shouldn't become spoil is dejected, because God specifically made the world starting with chaos and then repair. Okay, and that's what He wants us to do. And every time we take a little bit of the chaos in our lives and we bring it a little bit closer to order, that gives a God incredible pleasure. Okay, that's the second thing. Okay, and the third thing is that negative thoughts, we have to realize, come from something bent in us, but they come from very, very high sources. Okay, and when we realize that just like what's the word? Extremes, in behavior. A person has an anger issue, or a person has an issue with apathy, or a person has sometimes depression, okay, or different things. All of these things are coming from very, very high spiritual places, okay, and that I know with myself, sometimes the solutions are so much easier than we think. Sometimes it's so frustrating. Sometimes even a small adjustment, okay, praying to Hashem, right, for help, and finding the right way, since they all come from a very high place and they all were based in holiness. Sometimes even a small adjustment can change the entire balance. That's the third thing that he's teaching here. Those are the three things that I thought were very, very important. Okay, that the highest things fall to the lowest places, right? And that number one, and number two, not any day is like the previous day, always new challenges. And that number three, that the challenges we have each day are the sparks that God chose for us to select. Meaning select is to recognize them, to repair it, meaning to do the best that we can with it, right? And to elevate it. Okay, those are the three things that we should take away from today. Okay, thank you very, very much, everybody. Okay, and really, next week we're gonna do Kufiyud Gimel and Kufiyud Daled, and it's a much more happy material. Okay. God bless each of you. Gabrielle, thank you for coming. And Daniel, I never hear you say anything, but I hope you enjoy the class. And Lisetta and Vincent, how do you like that book? I didn't keep my promise yet that we're going to study together, but hopefully we're going to, this coming week, we'll do something, okay? And Regina, thank you for coming. Dara, if I didn't have your questions, I would just fold up and give up everything. Ionut, God bless you. Valerio and Sylvie, Chazak,
Shavua Tov.
Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you,
Cool.
Shavuot.
So,
Thank you. Bye.
my pleasure. Bye everybody.
Bye-bye.